everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Avelia. I work on our team at the foundation, which is focused around partnerships, and my role specifically focuses on partnerships with industry groups, but also other key stakeholders in drug development, such as regulatory agencies and payers as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about how our venture philanthropy model aims to de-risk research in Parkinson's disease. And to start, I'll just give a little bit of background about the foundation. We were founded in the year 2000, obviously by actor Michael J. Fox, who is a patient living with Parkinson's disease today. At the time of our inception, we actually had sort of the luxury of a number of other nonprofit disease foundations that were focused on Parkinson's, but more so focused on the advocacy and awareness front. So we were able to really come in and fill the gaps in terms of funding research for Parkinson's. So therefore, our main mission is to aggressively fund Parkinson's research in order to drive therapeutic development ultimately towards finding a cure for the disease. As our co-founder, Debbie Brooks, always says, we are one of few organizations that are actually in the business of trying to get out of business. So it's kind of a unique situation to be in. We are a team of under 100, all based in New York City, but a lot of our sort of local activities and engagement with the community on the ground is done through our grassroots fundraising campaign called Team Fox. We have funded just over $500 million in Parkinson-specific research to date. We average between sort of $60 to $70 million per year that we give out in sort of research grants. Last year, 2015, was actually a really stellar year. We were able to fund over $75 million in research. And so currently, our research team is managing over 450 active grants. And these are grants and research that's coming from both academic and industry labs. And so I'll kind of quickly highlight too on our business model as this really drives sort of the venture philanthropic model that we have. Our model is really centered around efficiency, urgency, and accountability, because all of the funds that we are able to invest in research comes from our donor community. These are people living with Parkinson's, their loved ones, their caregivers. These are also just fans of Michael in general, who are providing us with these much needed dollars. We sort of act with urgency and efficiency in order to deploy those funds as quickly as possible. With that said, we have no endowment, so we don't actually sit on any of the funds that we raise. Our fundraising team goes out throughout the year, raises money, and we spend those dollars down throughout the year until we reach back at zero again in January. 89 cents of every dollar that we do raise goes directly into what we consider research activities. We also hold our awardees accountable too, in that we obviously draft milestone-driven projects. We have multiple different assessments in which we are holding our awardees accountable to showing progress in the research that we are actually funding. And then that allows us to then translate and update on that progress back to the donor community, and that's sort of the cycle of our model. So we take a holistic approach to investing in research. Our funding goes into two main buckets. One is drug development, and the other is addressing and tackling some of the field-wide challenges that relate to Parkinson's drug development in general. Within drug development, we, of course, disease modification, therapy that could potentially halt or slow the disease is our holy grail. So a lot of our funding effort goes towards that. But we also look to fund research in developing new and novel therapies that can address some of the motor and non-motor symptoms for people that are living with Parkinson's disease today. On the flip side, in terms of funding some of the field-wide challenges, a large effort is around the discovery of a biomarker. There currently is no biomarker of Parkinson's disease progression that we can use both as a diagnostic but also to understand therapeutic efficacy in the clinical setting. We've spent a lot of investment dollars in validating and optimizing tools for the preclinical setting, and also a lot of support goes to assisting our partners that have ongoing trials with patient recruitment and retention help. And so we prioritize and pursue research in these main areas, not only by providing some of the financial contribution, but also by providing infrastructural support and intellectual expertise as well. So the foundation takes the roles of a venture philanthropist. in that, for us, where we see our dollars making the biggest impact is in the area where there is just a gap in funding. There's this unmet need, what we all call the valley of death. So we focus our funding between the target validation, translational, all the way up to a phase 1, phase 2 clinical trial, understanding that even for a phase 2 clinical trial, the funding that we can offer, just given our limited resources, are really just a drop in the bucket. The reason for this is that we believe that a lot of the basic biology work and early discovery is in large part supported by funding from the NIH. So if we can focus our funding in where there is an unmet need and sort of the gap in other external capital, that we can push as many projects through this drug development pipeline as possible in order to make them more attractive at a later stage for a larger follow-on funder to come in, mostly around the phase 2, phase 3 setting. And the way that we're able to, how we believe, make this research in Parkinson's as attractive to these follow-on funders is that we provide non-dilutive funding. So we take no IP ownership or any equity in any of the grants that we write. There's no language in our agreements that relate to revenue sharing or royalty streams. In some cases, for some of the few phase 2 multi-year, multi-million-dollar grants that we have written out, we have included some language around a repayment of the initial grant that we provided, sort of upon the milestone of a commercialization or a large partner deal with a pharmaceutical company. But other than that, we really aim to make sure that our role in investing in our awardees is sort of just providing the financial capital needed to help build robust data packages and really make the case and build confidence to support these projects through each stage of development. So that said, and I think I was kind of alluding to this already, we do fund industry groups. We fund virtual two-man companies all the way up to the Pfizers of the world. We're completely agnostic as to where our funding goes. It's all really based on scientific merit of the project that's proposed to us. We have funded over $115 million in research that is led by an industry organization to date. And again, sort of our belief is that, we understand that Parkinson's is just one indication out of many. It's a smaller market when you even consider Alzheimer's, let alone the oncology market. So for us, if we can incentivize as many groups as possible to partake in Parkinson's research, whether that's by providing that financial contribution or other resources, then at least that's sort of where we view our role in being a venture philanthropist. And so, we also value these partnerships with our industry groups in that we're able to share understandings on a target. Our industry partners have much more wealth of knowledge around drug development than we do. And so we also partner with a number of industry groups on pre-competitive public-private consortium, which I will go into later. But that said, we have embedded and long-standing relationships with a number of pharma groups, biotechs, and CROs. And so on the other side, we really actively seek to promote the research that we're funding in order to continue to attract that follow-on funding from external sources. One of the ways in which we do this is through an annual scientific conference that we host each year in New York. This allows us to provide a forum in which we can highlight some of the really exciting data that's coming out of our portfolio. This is attended heavily by industry groups, mostly business development professionals and investors that are looking for potential investment opportunity within the Parkinson's space. This forum allows for novel partnerships to be built. It also attracts significant dollars from follow-on funders. We also understand the role that just having a grant by the Fox Foundation plays. It is an extremely competitive process to get a Michael J. Fox Foundation grant. We receive over 1,000 applications each year. That's about 1,000 new ideas that relate to Parkinson's and that we review. And so we understand that there's this stamp of approval that companies receive when they do get a Fox Foundation grant that other follow-on funders are looking for. And we've actually played a significant role in helping our awardees receive that follow-on funding by participating in partnership meetings, but also by having more proactive messaging around what's exciting research that people should be looking into. And then lastly, I've touched on this before, but going back to our philosophy is really predicated on non-dilutive investments. We're not motivated by P&L, but we're really motivated by advancing as many therapeutics through the testing stage into the clinic and having what we call as many shots on goal as possible. And so this is just a great way to showcase what we call our de-risking successes. This is just a few out of many, and really what the foundation is most proud of in terms of our role in funding research to date. You can see a number of these projects we've supported in the early stages of development, and after receiving either one or multiple Fox Foundation grants, they were able to receive follow-on funding either from government institutions, venture capital, a partnership with a larger pharmaceutical company, or potentially filing for IPO. So this for us is really kind of our sweet spot in what we're able to showcase in terms of progress in what our research funding has been able to showcase. And then lastly, I'll just go into this notion that our collaborations with industry groups really do drive innovation. We have a number of flagship initiatives which the foundation is sort of the sponsor and host of, but are in collaboration and do seek support from industry partners as well. The first is our Parkinson's Progression Markers Initiative. This is an $80 million longitudinal observational study with the aim of identifying 1 or 2 biomarkers of Parkinson's disease progression. This is an initiative that the Fox Foundation is the sponsor of the trial at around 33 international clinical sites that are recruiting patients, but also in partnership with 15 industry partners that are providing substantial financial contribution, but also an advisory role as well. We have a number of different cohorts that are currently enrolling within this initiative and have done all of our baseline analysis and currently looking at different sort of hypotheses to test. And the samples and data and biosamples that we collect through this study are available for external researchers to test and test their hypothesis on as well, with the aim of finding a biomarker. Our Tools Consortium is really a great example of a pre-competitive public-private consortium between multiple industry players that on the average day are competitive in nature. This is a consortium with the aim of identifying and then thus contracting out research around development of novel tools for Parkinson's disease research. So we have one representative from about 9 or so industry companies that all meet and they vote on what tools or animal models they would like to see developed. And then the Fox Foundation, with financial support from the consortium, but also from the foundation as well, goes out and then contracts out that work. And then lastly, with the aim of addressing some of the challenges around clinical trial recruitment, the Fox Foundation has initiated a flagship online platform called Fox Trial Finder. This essentially works like Match.com in that it matches Parkinson's patients and sort of healthy controls that are willing to participate in research with clinical trials that are happening in their area and looking for their sort of specific demographics. We have about 50,000 registered volunteers that are actively being recruited through this tool and matching with trials, and we have about 450 trials that are recruiting using this tool as well. And then lastly, we want to work with you. I think my role at the foundation is really to bridge sort of interested parties that want to understand how to partner with the foundation and some of the resources that we can provide, not only just the financial contribution, but also the scientific expertise and partnerships and various workshops and summits that we host, and making sure that all the different players that are active in Parkinson's research are working through the eyes of the patient, and that's essentially the goal at the Fox Foundation. With that, I'll take any questions.